Mr. Prime Minister, when you came to power, you promised accountability, transparency, and clean ethics. Now that we've had the robocalls, the In-N-Out scandal, the G20 abuses, the F-35 boondoggle, the shattering of Parliament, the cancelling of the long-form census, muzzling of scientists, the Duffy-Wallen scandal, losing track of $3.1 billion in security funding, stonewalling on digital spying, the military police investigation of CTV for breaking stories that embarrass the government, and now turning CBC into a state broadcaster. How do you respond to that?
There goes my Senate appointment.
Who is going to ask the tough questions now? Join the campaign to free the CBC from political interference.
What an excellent way to start things off.
That was really cool, especially it ran down all the problems that the Harper government is having.
Well, I don't know if that's all the problems that they're having. I mean, they've got this accountability and credibility problem right now.
Yes, I know.
Some local activists that we're talking about. We are here. I'm Darren Howard.
I'm Robert Nisbet.
Yes, indeed. We're pointing an accusing elbow at the Conservative Party as we jump in. The con is on. Welcome to Radio Free Canada.
So, a little over 2 years of a Harper majority, and what do we have to show for it? We have eviscerated environmental legislation so that our rivers and our lakes are no longer protected. We have seniors living in poverty who now have to wait till they're 67 before they can collect OAS. They have to keep working. We have the unemployed no longer being able to access unemployment insurance. And those that are lucky enough to be able to access it have to work at jobs for 30% less than they were working at before. We have 335,000 temporary foreign workers in this country to fill a skill shortage that the government is doing nothing about. And at the same time, Canadians living here can't get visas to have relatives come and visit them here in this country. It's a crying shame. It's a Canada that I didn't sign up for. But it doesn't have to be this way. We can look after the environment so our children, our grandchildren, and our grandchildren's children can play in this Canada we love. We can look after our seniors so that they're not living in poverty or working till they're God knows what age because this government thinks we can't afford them. We can. We can afford to look after the unemployed with an unemployment insurance system they pay into that they should be able to collect from, and collect from in a way that allows them to live. We can train our Canadian children so that the skilled trades we need in this world don't have to be filled by a steady stream of temporary foreign workers coming to this country. We need to do these things now so that Canada can be the beacon of hope that it once was in this world.
Yes, indeed. We've got a lot of repair work to do.
Oh, we do, but we've had, how many years of the steady hand of the Harper majority on the tiller of our financial economy.
We keep replaying that commercial where he says, we're going to be accountable and transparent, and then $3.1 billion goes missing. But where's the news on that?
Well, they are paying
trunk
some
of a
attention.
car.
Yeah, they're in the trunk of a car, yeah.
We're here to jump in on Stephen Harper's nightmare. This is Radio Free Canada Video Radio, support system for people with their eyes open.
That's right.
And what do you got for me, brother?
Well, I don't know if you've noticed the Economic Action Plan ads that they've been propagating the airways with.
Yes, sir. They're employing advertisers and sign posters.
Well, there's been some other people have been taking notice of that as well.
So let's check it out. And remember, check our facts. We're not saying trust us. This is independent media. Thanks for tuning in.
Almost every Canadian will have encountered, at some point, the Harper government's eye-catching Economic Action Plan advertisements. The government claims the advertisements are necessary to educate Canadians on various government initiatives. But a newly released poll indicates that the ads have been ineffective. Canada's ruling Conservative Party is imposing harsh austerity measures on ordinary Canadians, arguing that there are insufficient funds to pay for social programs. Meanwhile, the very same government has spent over $100 million of taxpayer money on what analysts have called partisan propaganda. The poll of 2,003 Canadians found that only 3 had visited the government's Economic Action Plan website, and none of those polled said they had called the toll-free number provided by the website to ask for further information. It's unclear, therefore, what exactly the taxpayer-funded ads achieved, other than to make the government look like they're doing something to alleviate Canada's economic problems. Critics note that Harper's government is ideologically opposed to genuine New Deal-style economic recovery programs. Instead, Ottawa believes in trickle-down economics, which leads them to formulate policies which prioritize the interests of capitalists over workers. Critics say such economic action plan ads are merely disseminated to placate the public, while little is being done to genuinely address Canada's grave social problems. Joshua Blakeney, Press TV, Calgary.
So, yeah, everyone's getting it.
Well, it's nice to know that, our government is working so hard at promoting the idea that they're actually doing something.
I like it when they say, hey, look, we're doing something, and then nothing happens. We've got an increasing amount of people who are unemployed right now, and they're not talking about what the real unemployment numbers are, because CBC, Global, and everyone accepts the fact that it's only people on UI and on welfare who are considered unemployed. But what about the people?
Everybody else?
Okay. The lie of the unemployment number and then the lie of the propaganda of the action plan. Man, put those together.
And, of course, they're trying to save money everywhere they can, allegedly.
Yeah, now, this is mess.
This is bad.
Okay, check it out.
Sylvie Terrien's job was to find holes in employment insurance claims and to cut people off their benefits. Her target, $500,000 a year. The EI investigator came forward in an exclusive interview with the CBC.
It just was against my value, my ethical value. Harassing people, claimants, is trying to cut them, deny them benefit, trying to penalize them in order to save money for the government. We had quotas to meet.
The federal government fired back, denying any quotas were in place.
There were no quotas for individuals.
The opposition hammered the Conservatives on the issue.
They're each required to find $500,000 in fraud, presumes that there's widespread fraud and that they're all a bunch of cheaters and criminals.
EI investigators were called in for questioning themselves to find out who leaked the document.
Which terminology is, I guess it definitely describes what was happening, because they were trying to find out who had in fact told the media that there were targets that had to be achieved.
Terrien was questioned in May. She admitted being the source of the leak and was suspended without pay. Human Resources Canada says it cannot comment specifically on Terrien's case, but it does say all Service Canada employees are bound by a code of conduct. That code of conduct includes a signed declaration saying employees will not go public with government information. Petty Fong, CBC News, Vancouver.
So, like all cockroaches, the Conservatives go running from the bright light of truth.
That's right. And, of course, all their energy is being spent on who's the leaker. We have our old Edward Snowden in our midst.
At the UI thing. And, you notice that who leaked the document?
Yeah.
It wasn't a statement. She gets up and apparently lies and says there was no quota.
Yeah.
But then they say, well, there was a document stating there was a quota. So let's kind of use our journalistic thought for a moment here, that one brain cell that's circulating and,
Well, when a politician isn't telling the truth.
Their lips are moving.
Exactly.
No, actually, you know what? We're really looking for those politicians whom we can trust to start arresting, like the fiat money system here, start installing some protection for the environment, or get rid of fascism. Because remember, what Harper's installing is fascism. That's when, corporations are more important than people or our future as a species.
Oh, yes, I know that. But apparently with the Harper government, we have no future as a species.
The next story that we've got coming up here is one of those stories that really catches our attention. The government, the Conservative government, the Harper government in particular, is racist. The Idle No More has revealed how racist they are. But this.
It is well documented that First Nations people over history have been on the losing end time and again of government policies. Tonight, a University of Guelph historian has unearthed another disturbing one. It started in 1942 on remote reserves in northern Manitoba and spread to residential schools Across the country, 1,300 natives, mostly children, were used in a 7-year experiment on malnutrition. They were starved in the name of science to test different diets: milk, no milk, vitamins, no vitamins. Researchers at the time said the population was marked by shiftlessness, indolence, and inertia, traits in the Indian race that were in fact the results of malnutrition. That government experiment was kept secret until now.
This past month, Canadians learned with horror that the federal government allowed hungry children to be used in experiments on starvation. But Canadians also learned that today, in 2013, the federal government has been undermining the process for justice for the survivors at St. Anne's Residential School in Fort Albany. This is what the federal government told the survivors of St. Anne's Residential School, quote, "There is no known incidents found in documents regarding sexual abuse at Fort Albany Indian Residential School. This is a false narrative, and it has undermined the rights of the victims for justice." This past week, as a result of pressure from the New Democrats, Indian Affairs Minister Val Cour has now agreed to refer this matter to the Ontario Superior Court. We support this move, but in order for this court review to be fair, the government must guarantee the legal and financial support for the survivors and their legal teams to challenge the federal government in Ontario Superior Court hearing. We are calling for an open public court hearing so that justice is done. Right now, we know that Minister MacKay is on a tour to promote the rights of victims. So we call on him to stand with the victims of St. Anne's Residential School. The government has an obligation to remediate the damage that they inflicted on generations of First Nation children in the James Bay region and across Canada. They have an obligation to remediate the damage that they have done to the legal process for the survivors of St. Anne's Residential School.
So a lot of people look at me kind of funny when I say that the Conservative government, specifically the right-wing Christian Conservative government, is racist. There you go.
There you go.
Okay. Now check it out. The Indian Act, you're not allowed to get a business loan. You're not allowed to leave property to your next generation. You're not allowed to do anything that normal capitalists do, but they expect the natives to.
Well, don't you know, according to those experiments, you're all shiftless and indolent.
There you go. Okay. And that's the way that they view them in the major Canadian government. It's a little bit frustrating.
Well, someday we may have some justice.
We're getting justice. The internet is out there. The cat is out of the bag. Pandora's box has been opened. People are waking up everywhere, and we're supporting them. Because that's what we do.
Exactly.
Trying to keep a positive attitude while a bunch of racist morons continue to carry on with the same BS. Peter MacKay, we would like justice for the victims of crime.
Especially those unreported crimes.
Oh, man. Stockwell days. You know, a shiver just ran up his spine. I'm Darren Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbet.
Look, stick around. We've got a whole bunch coming up. This is our summer series. We're going to be back to regular recording again. So just stick around and make sure you get a sign and get out into the street. You're tuned in to Video Radio. This is Radio Free Canada. Canada used to have what is called a social safety net. That net used to consist of welfare and UI checks, and it ensured that people would not have to steal to live. But now there are no effective social safety nets left, except for the richest of the rich. How does it work? Well, it's pretty simple. Major corporations are awarded subsidies, tax breaks, and eased regulations, and you are not. Not convinced? Just remember that you pay 65% of your wages in taxes, and Canadian banks, corporations, pay no taxes at all. But things are changing. From Egypt to Toronto, from Victoria to Halifax, people are winning battles by standing up for what is right. People like me and you. On January 28th, we are asking you to go to your city hall at 12 noon all across the country. Spread this video around and stand up against corporate welfare and get our safe streets back in an effective way.